So, bit of housekeeping. As I have just proven, technology doesn't necessarily behave, so forgive me if everything goes to plan. If you want to have your camera on, by all means, but if you can keep yourself muted during the presentation. And any questions are welcome. I've got Lenny, my PA, sitting in the background. Lenny will take note of the questions and we'll have a Q&A session in between and at the end. So I don't put you guys to sleep. Don't worry, I'll have you out of here before 10 o'clock. Just kidding. Just kidding. So, I'm recording. Thanks for joining. I know everybody's busy, so it's much appreciated. All right. Obviously, this is not financial advice. I'm obliged to give this thing to you. This is general nature. I know you can't read that, but I've got to flash it up. All right. I'd like to keep things very, very simple. So let's go through the why, the how, the what, with whom, and what's next. Now, my intention is to have us out of here in 45 minutes. So let's see how we go with that. That obviously also depends on how many questions we get and how that is going. I will stay till 4 a.m. if you knock me dead with questions. So I will endeavor to answer any question. If there's something coming up that I can't answer here and then, we'll take it on notice and we will obviously answer that when we send the recording out. So everybody will get the recording. All right, why SDA in the first place? First of all, is everybody clear on the terms NDIS? If yes, give me a thumbs up. If no, give me a thumbs down. Okay, so National Disability Scheme, insurance scheme came in about 3-4 years ago. It's, as far as I'm concerned, a great scheme, not only because it gives choice and control in the hands of the participant. Now, some terms. Participant is the tenant, is the person with disability. There are some terms that we use. So participant is the tenant, the person with disability. Not only because it gives choice and control into the participant, but also it provides for a much fairer system. I'll get more into that. It's a fairly risk-averse investment if set up correctly. I'll speak more about that because that's one of my bugbears. Okay. It is an ethical investment, the way that we play the game, and I make no excuses for that. As far as I'm concerned, we don't have to rip people off. We can do good things and create win-win-win situations. Now, why do I say win-win-win? Win for the participant because they get to live in a choice location in a purpose-built facility. Win for the investor because there's good money in it and it's a fairly risk-averse investment, as I said, if set up correctly. And win for the community because one of my bugbears, quite frankly, is 18 to 20-year-olds to 25-year-olds that are sitting as we speak in retirement homes and can't get out of there because there are not enough facilities around. That's one of the things that drive me. And we can do a good thing, we can serve the community, and we can make money at the same time. I like the win-win-win situation. There's some great returns in it, we know that, but there are also issues to be considered. And whatever you do, have the right team. I don't say that to push my own barrel, I say that to warn you about things that are going on there. Okay, the structure of the whole setup is fairly complex, so let me see if I can simplify it. There are effectively 3 groups: the participant, the provider, the SDA. That's SDA is the Specialist Disability Accommodation, and the other providers. Now, One of the reasons why the NDIS came about is that there was to be a separation between the specialist disability accommodation provider and the other providers, specifically the SIL, Specialist Independent Living, or Supported Independent Living providers. There's some shenanigans that happened in the past where people were being looked after by companies that also ran the housing, and some of those people were trapped. That was one of the ideas why the NDIS came in, to separate effectively the SDA provider, the provider of the dwelling, from the providers of the other support. So the participant is the tenant. The idea is for them to have choice and flexibility. Choice where they live versus who looks after their everyday needs. That's the big separation. The SDA provider is only responsible for the provision of the home, nothing else. The other providers, in regards to getting the dwelling up, the developer and the builder obviously put the land up. The other providers, obviously the developer and the builder, are contributing to the build. The Supported Independent Living organization provides the support for the everyday needs. Occupational therapists, specialists of the medical kind are involved in the planning of the services and needs of the participants. Okay, where does the cost, where does the return come from? The tenant only pays 25% up to 25% of the Commonwealth Rent Assistance and up to 100% of the disability support pension gets directly from the tenant into the SDA provider. The SDA provider receives the subsidy directly from the NDIS or NDIA. The other providers get their fee for service according to what is in the plan of the participant. Now that's a whole nother story, whether you're plan managed, whether you're self-managed. Too much to cover here and now. Suffice to say, let's call it jovially, there is a bucket of money that can be used for all the other services that the person with disability, that the participant needs. Is that making sense? Are we good so far? Okay, 1, 2, 3, okay. Tell me, now let's open it up for questions. I'm sorry, I don't get your name. 61428. Open up your mic, ask a question. What's not clear? Let me help you.
No, everything is clear, and we're just getting to know the situation. Everything is crystal clear so far.
Okay, when you say you just came to know the situation, what do you mean?
I mean, we just digging into this category recently.
Okay.
Well, not long ago, but maybe a week or two. We're just getting all the information together.
Okay.
And what you have presented so far makes sense.
Okay. It is a very complex issue, and I'm trying to keep it fairly simple. So bear with me. But if I'm not making something clear, do chip in. Just give me one of those that I understand. That I understand definitely, and then we open up the microphones.
I'm surely with your ability, you're gonna do a wonderful job.
Ah, thank you.
I can see that coming.
You're really putting the pressure on me now. By the way, for the avoidance of doubt, English is not, or Australian is not my mother tongue, so but I generally figure out when I get really excited, I will start speaking German to you.
Please do that. Do that first.
I will see the strange look on your faces and it'll be okay. I will correct myself. All right, let's kick on. So the participant, now let's talk about responsibilities. Who is responsible for what? The participant is responsible for the home, for the dwelling, just like a normal tenant. So the expenses for power, water, in theory also the garden maintenance is up to the participant. Now, very few of those will do garden maintenance themselves. They will have in their plan some money for such services. And again, it comes back to whether they're plan managed or self-managed or whatever. The SDA provider, the Specialist Disability Accommodation provider, is responsible for the dwelling as a normal landlord. Now, here is something that needs to be taken into consideration. And very few people will tell you this. Expect higher maintenance cost. I will cover how we mitigate that later on. I get very cranky when I see the marketers only disclosing the good side, but not disclosing the risks and responsibilities. So rest assured, in a dwelling of this kind, this is not a normal tenancy. The buildings that we build are not Class 1A residential buildings. They're Class 3. They're domestic residential, they're domestic commercial buildings. With that also comes another price tag. And there's a lot of shenanigans that are happening there as well. But anyway, so the SDA provider is responsible for the dwelling as a normal landlord, including all the maintenance, fix up, whatever. Alright, so the other service providers are responsible for their respective services, just like normal. So if I'm the occupational therapist and I provide support out of the as aforementioned bucket, we get paid. Allow me to indulge for a moment to myself. So why would you work with PropertyFriends? We provide solutions to people aspiring to financial independence that want choices in retirement or want to leave a legacy. It is no secret the earliest desire, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is shelter and financial security. So if we can help people to get both, as far as I'm concerned, I'm back at the win-win. That's where I want to be. People are busy. A lot of people are working out that they need to have a second income source or build up an asset base. And most people don't have the time or the knowledge to do it. Our benchmark for the last 20 years has been only what is good enough for my wife and myself is good enough for our team. I'm not a marketer. Only what's good enough for ourselves is good enough for our team. I don't propose anything that I'm not prepared to do myself. 20 years experience, let me go back, 20 years experience. And if you allow me, I'll play you 30 seconds of a testimonial of a gentleman, Stefan Kazakis. We've just finished 6 weeks ago a house in Townsville. And this is what Stefan had to say.
Hi, Uwe Jacobs, PropertyFriends strategist. I'm just standing here in Townsville, lovely Townsville golf course, with Stefan Kazakis. We've just handed over the house. Stefan, how did it go?
PropertyFriends were incredible. Every step of the way was truly taking care of anything that we were being concerned or not sure about. Hoover and your team have been amazing, and we so are delighted to be receiving the home here today, and wouldn't do it any different any other time. So thank you so much. PropertyFriends have been amazing.
Thank you.
That project came in on budget and with a 1 week delay. So during COVID, we only experienced 1 week delay, which is testimony to how we do business. We believe in long-term relationships, both on our supplier as well as on our client side. Okay, When I talk about what to do, I also want to talk about what not to do. And that is, these are physical quotes that I see just about every day from the marketeers. So you also get highly incentivized returns from 11 to 18% rental return. All returns are worked out to be 16.11% net after all expenses. $50,000 return, $8,055 per year, 16.11%. Property that is yielding net 14% returns. Or this is a screenshot of a marketeer's pamphlet. $90,000 return, weekly return, gross yield 14.24%. Now, I'm not going to say that that is not possible. But what I am going to say is this is half the story. Let's let the cat out of the bag straight away. I generally say 8% plus is the net return. Why do I say that? Because we work fairly risk mitigated. And the difference between the 8%, let's call it, and the upside will sit in your account. For example, and I will cover it in a brief moment as well, we generally build 3-bedroom homes. I suggest to calculate the return only on 2 bedrooms occupied. Why is that? Well, one, a number of people with disability have family members that they want with them, which makes sense to me. Now, the family member will not be fully subsidized by the SDA. So I'm diminishing my return. Yes. But I'm also increasing my likelihood for a long-term tenancy. I don't know about you, but it makes sense to me to have 1 or 2% less, but have a tenant that lives happily for 8 to 10 to 15 to, in an ideal world, 20 years in my property. So when you look at those returns, that's my summary, ask many questions. What expenses are there? And is there anything else that comes out of that return? The oldest trick in the book is to guarantee a return of, say, $60,000. When you hear that, run as fast as you can, as far as I'm concerned. So I believe in above board. I believe in the money is yours. I believe in accountability. Okay, let's not drone on too much. How do we like to do things? Well, what to do is all about you. And that is you, the participant, or the tenant, and the investor. We can do all sorts of deals, but what we want to do is provide a choice of location for the participant and provide the choice between risk and return to the investor. As far as I'm concerned, there is no one shoe fits all. We customize strategy for you. And that is beginning with 2 questions. Where are you at? And where do you want to go? It's a bit like if I say I want to go to Sydney. If I don't know that I'm in Melbourne, I'll have a hard time going there. If I know that I'm in Melbourne and I don't know where to go and where do I want to end up, I'll have a hard time ending up somewhere. So it's all about strategy that needs to be customized for the individual person. And that goes back to what is your motivation. If you're into long-term risk-averse investment, into sustainable, relatively secure returns. Now, we put our SDAs, our Specialist Disability Accommodation, in choice locations. We've completed 2 on the harbour in Hobart in November last year. We've completed 2 on the golf course with golf course frontage in Townsville, on the best golf course in Townsville. We've got the 3rd one on the way, and we're looking at 2 more. Now, why the hell would I spend the extra money when I can get away with cheaper locations? Great question, I say. The reason is the choice of the tenant. With the way that some marketing companies are churning out what I call bread and butter boxes, that is the dwelling that is designed to the absolute minimum, there will be locations that are in oversupply. Now, no rocket science. If you can live on a golf course, on the harbour, or you can live in the mountains if that's what you choose, or you have the choice of living in the not so nice part of town, then there is no question, is there? So this is why we put our dwellings, our homes, into choice locations, because ultimately it doesn't cost the tenant $1 more, but it provides security for the tenant, it provides lifestyle for the tenant, and it provides security and risk mitigation for the investor. And that's why we do that. The issue with very high yielding properties, with very high income properties, is normally that the capital gains are fairly low. There seems to be a seesaw effect between capital gains and rental yield. Well, I like my cake and eat it too, with a body shape like mine. You can see that. I like capital gains and great returns. Now, the great returns are certainly available in the NDIS, Specialist Disability Accommodation. But the capital gains are only going to come in real terms out of scarce locations. Now, with the money that's in the kitty, we can avail ourselves to choice locations and hence have a scarce location that will provide capital gain. And that's the dual, the double bang. That's the icing on the cake, to have both return and capital gains. That's what it's all about in our books. It is a government-funded subsidy. The scheme at this stage is funded for 20 years, and a happy home makes a secure tenant because they will choose the better equipped properties. And again, I say it's an ethical investment with a participant in front of mind, and that gives you a secure tenancy. Something that in the real terms we're all after. Who wouldn't want to have a tenant that is in the place for 5, 10, 15 years? It makes sense. So, I thought I'd give you an example of a floor plan. This house is 210 square meter large. It has 2 bedrooms only, both with en-suites, a 3rd bathroom that is adjacent to what is called the OOA, the Overnight Accommodation Carer. So we have 2 designated bathrooms for the people with disability, for the participants, and we have a 3rd bathroom for able-bodied guests or the carer. Now, there is a big storeroom, a big alfresco, and these 3 dwellings are on the ocean front in Western Australia, in Geraldton. Again, of course it costs more money to get to such a location. But do you think that I having the choice to live with ocean frontage or living in the middle of the city? Well, some people will choose the city, but my argument is that more people will choose the ocean frontage. So that's why we do that. This design is probably 35 square meters larger than it needs to be. The storeroom, for example, is something that is very, very rarely provided. Why do we do it? Because I listen to our clients. They refer to the wheelchair people, refer to their wheelchairs as toys. They have not one, not two, generally 3 wheelchairs. They need to store them somewhere. And that's the reason why the storeroom is accessible from the lounge dining. You also will find that there is extra large linen space and so on and so forth. We have in this plan really optimized, and we're providing a electrical variable height bench that incorporates the sink and the hot plates. One of the things that is being talked about in the community is that there are very few places where the person with disability can cook themselves or can do the dishes themselves. Some of which want to do that. So you can knock that over with a 900 millimeter height adjustable bench that is manually operated. That's the design guideline. As far as I'm concerned, that doesn't work for me, and it certainly doesn't work for the people with disability. So let's spend a little bit more money up front and secure a tenancy that is long term. I keep on getting back to that because it just makes so much sense for me. Okay, now in regards to the returns, everybody wants to know the returns. So let me just say straight up again, this is not financial advice. The returns are quite complex and is location dependent, and every tenancy is different. There is no one size fits all. If I give you 8% plus as a net return, that is what I think is very, very secure. Again, on that point, it's your money. We have see-through bookkeeping. So anything above the 8% will sit in your account. Right? We don't guarantee fixed returns. All the money goes to you. It depends on the occupants, and here's the big thing. No tenants, no income. You better make sure when you are entering into a SDA deal that the providers have really got tenants lined up or have good contacts to the SIL providers, to other providers, to organizations where tenants are secured. I have seen companies quoting $10,000 per room to secure a tenant. Alright, ensure the right location with great prospects for tenants speaks for itself. Capital growth comes through choice locations that have scarcity, and I'd say generally 8% plus. Consider the increased cost versus the normal tenancy. Right? We have spent at this stage about $25,000 on becoming an SDA approved provider. The manual is that thick. I didn't really want to do it, but I can't expect every one of our investors to become a provider. And if I want to control the outcome, which is only the best will do, then I've got to control the inputs. Okay, so how does it all work? 8% plus net deal. 20-year government-backed lease. A new property, low rental vacancy. If we do it right, You should have a tenant for 5, 10, 15 years. Rent reviews annually. The rates are adjusted by CPI. Capital growth through choice locations. The risks need to be considered. So, how does it all work? What is to be had? We want to have balance between growth and yield. Minimum 5, better 10-year property strategy. This is not a flip. This is not a get in, make the money, get out after 2-year deal. Right? There is quite a bit of risk, but there is also quite a bit of reward. And the question is always, what is the right deal for you? So what we are suggesting is you can book a 30 minutes discovery call. The link is here. It will also be in the mail out. Take advantage of that. Doesn't cost you anything, and we can have a chat about your situation, about what you want to achieve and what you want to do. Okay, so what is to be considered? The parties involved, the alliance partners. Who is your developer? Who is your builder, your certifier, inspector, supported independent living provider, the specialist disability provider? All of the providers need to be carefully chosen, including the local rental manager. The build cost and compliance costs are higher than normal investment. There are very few marketing companies that will tell you what cost goes to the SDA, what cost goes into the sinking fund, and so on and so forth. We lay the books open. It's your money. There's a heck of a lot of legislative framework and compliance. Monthly meetings need to be done, need to be documented, and so on and so forth. Excuse me. All right. Cost factors to be considered. The build cost, the compliance cost, the rental management sinking fund. We are strongly suggesting to have a sinking fund. Now, that's your choice. The money in the sinking fund sits in your account. And I'm also suggesting to have a vacancy up front. It is important when you get the tenants to do a good, wise and suitable tenant selection. You don't want to put 2 or 3 people together that hate each other's guts. That ain't gonna make for a good tenancy, is it? It's not rocket science. The SDA and other income and cost is a straight pass through with us. It's your money. So again, I'm suggesting book a strategy call. The link is there. 30 minutes and we have a look at what we can do and what would you like to know and how we can best help. Okay, I've droned on long enough, 35 minutes. I've set a target of 45, so Lenny, do we have any questions or from the floor? Now is the time to open the microphone. Go right ahead. Any questions, ask them.
Hi, if I can ask some question, please.
Yeah, sure.
My name is Narinder. I think it hasn't come up on the screen. The property that you mentioned, are they mainly concentrating in Queensland or Melbourne or Victoria as well, or somewhere else?
Our strategy, Narinder, is it?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
Narinder. Our strategy is, again, risk mitigation. We believe in diversification. So we have strategic locations that we do these properties in. How do we derive at these strategic locations? By looking at what's the rental demand, what's the general rental vacancy, and we've got a whole raft. So to make a short question into a relatively short answer, we've built at this stage in Hobart, we've built at this stage in Townsville. The next set is in Western Australia in Geraldton. I suspect that the next set after that it will be in Cairns. So I build wherever it makes sense, wherever the business case is sound. Why do I not build in the main cities? Well, quite frankly, the cost of the land is usually quite high, too high for my liking, for what you get for it. But the bigger point is the marketeers are growing rampant in the main cities. That's a competition that I don't want to be with. The other point is that if you choose the area wisely, you end up with an area with very little competition. And that spells for good rental.
Okay, thanks. And I know you're going to say to me it's depending on the location, but what's the likely cost of a dwelling when you from start to finish?
It depends on what category you build. I know you're looking for a rule of thumb. Let's say finished, all done, $2,000 a square meter. That's for fully accessible, designed to high physical support, but not fully fitted out to high physical support. Now, again with us, we lay the books open and you see every dollar that is in the deal for the builder, every dollar that is in the deal for the developer, and every dollar that is in the deal for us.
So what is your role into that? Can you explain that? Where will you be fitting and how will you be conducting it on a regular basis? What will be your role?
Sorry, I'm not clear on your question. Rough figure.
What is your role in there? Where do you?
My role.
How you benefit?
Okay, I benefit by a fixed fee. Let's get that out of the way. Our fixed fee is $30,000 plus GST.
Okay.
Now, I know that's ridiculously cheap because traditionally you pay $50, $60, $80 to $100,000 in the deal hidden.
Yeah.
I don't believe in that. I believe you as the purchaser and as a property friend, you ought to have the figures, you ought to be able to decide at the very beginning, at the front, whether you think this is a good deal or not. Because if you don't think it's a good deal, let's not start. I don't mean to be arrogant.
No, please be. We need to get.
I just don't believe in setting myself up for arguments later on. And if the deals that we do are good enough, I can put the figures on the table.
Yeah.
No problems.
Okay. And this fee, though, you'll be charged about finding the location and finding the providers.
We have three tiers, three pillars to the business.
Yeah.
One is finding the deal. The second one is administering the deal, and the third one is to provide the specialist disability accommodation. Okay. So there's a mix, and that again depends on what we do and where we do it and all these sort of things. What I would suggest is book in for a half-an-hour session and we'll have a chat.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah. Paul, all okay? Thanks for coming. I'm very happy to see you here. Are there any other questions? Sorry.
Well, I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
It's Ruan. I think my video is not working.
Yeah.
You're talking about specialist disability accommodation. Now, is that physically disabled or people are with other disabilities? Are they coming under the same sort of a frame, or they are talking different people, like people are mentally disabled or things like that? Are they part of your cohort, or it's just the physically disabled people you're looking at?
Great question. There are 4 classifications in specialist disability accommodation. There is the lowest category, that is people that are handicapped in slight ways. Let's call it this way. There is the next level is fully accessible, which means that it needs to be wheelchair compliant. Then there is high physical care or high physical support, which means that it needs to be wheelchair compliant, plus you need to be able to fit hoists under the ceiling to lift people into beds, into bathrooms. Now, then there is a fourth category that is called robust. That is for people that have anger issues usually, and that is where people normally live on their own. So there is horses for courses. The two tenants that we have just about to go into our house in Townsville have psychological issues, but they have 24-hour care, right? So am I worried about people with psychological issues? No, I'm not, because they have 24-hour care and they're being looked after. The likelihood of serious damage is highest with the robust builds. Now, there is a reason why there is a lot more money in the robust deals as well. So that's again the risk for reward thing. And that's why I'm saying there are so many variables in this game that I would want to sit down with you for your benefit, and it's just an offer, and ask questions like, what's your risk profile? Rowan, we've been through this. Is it true or is it not true?
Yeah, sure. No, I'm just.
I don't just flog a property. That's easy. I want to set up for long-term relationships. So for that, I need to know what you're about. What drives you? What do we want to achieve? Where are we at? What's our risk profile? How much disposable income is there? What's your time? You know, I can go on for hours. What we want to do is develop a personalized strategy. That's what it's all about. And I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you've been on the receiving end, and has it worked?
It has worked. No issues. I'm just asking a
and
question.
so you should.
Because the structure is being built in your house that I saw was mainly for people with a little bit of physical disability. So I was thinking, why not other people? Maybe the houses will be slightly different for those people. That was my question.
Yeah.
Basically.
In general terms, we have, I've been building for 20 years. We have a basic design that can be fitted out to different objectives. That makes it more cost effective for the builder, which makes it better for us as investors. And that makes it more flexible for the participant. Win, win, win. I like it.
Thanks.
So that's what it's about. Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Vidya. I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
I mean, I normally hear from builders, like spoke to a couple of builders, and they say we have participants ready. They're waiting in the wait list for years and all. But I also follow some pages and Facebook pages and all related to NDIS, and I see the advertisements where they say, okay, they have open homes and they are looking for applications or expression of interest. Do they really have this wait list, and do we really have this demand for these houses? Like participants are really waiting for, or there is enough demand to get into this market?
The short answer is yes, there is enough demand. And that goes back to location, and that goes back to research. I'll give you a $500 tip. And no, I don't want to be paid for it. Go to the Summer Foundation website. The Summer Foundation provides excellent reports that you can access, and they have a half-yearly or even quarterly demand report. Now, you'll need to spend a bit of time in going into that document, understanding it, but you can get to the information where is the demand required and requested. There is also great information on the NDIS website. They also provide quarterly reports of what is in the pipeline and what is required. So if you want to sit down and work it out, nut it out, you can establish where the demand is likely to be. Now, the hard part is to find out what's in the pipeline under construction or under planning. Because what you don't want to have happen is, let's say I go to Timbuktu and there are 25 places needed in Timbuktu. There are none there at the moment. And I go and happily build 3 homes for 2 participants each. So that's 6. And 300 meters down the road, there is somebody who builds for 20 people. That's the market intelligence. That's being in the market, knowing the market. Will you get all the information? No, you won't. But it's all about doing as much research as you can and being very, very careful where you build. When somebody says to you that they have got tenants lined up and on the waiting list, I would ask for names. I would ask for their SDA approval number, and I would ask for their classification of approval. Now, if I have those names on the list, and you're a serious buyer, there's everything right with giving you that information. I don't have to disclose the personal information, but if I have those people, why not say, yeah, here's the information. If you can get that sort of information, I think it's more believable. Now, do we have the full amount of tenants lined up for Western Australia? No. Am I worried about it? No. The reason is that, one, the substructure in Western Australia of the occupational therapists, of the specialist professionals that approve and further the approvals that the participants need, is just growing there. Now, we are also getting into the market very early. I was supposed to be in Western Australia 3 weeks ago. Well, we all know in Victoria that we couldn't get out of here. So one of the things that we are doing is we are making contact, we're making information sessions with the SIL providers, with the occupational therapists, with the people in the know, with the LACs, local area coordinators, very early. Now, again, we come back to, and it ain't rocket science. If you provide a building that is above normal, above the minimum, that provides amenities, location and features that are outstanding from the market, you will always have a tenant, given normal circumstances. Does that make sense?
Yes. One more question. We have. Sorry if anybody is waiting in the line.
That's
for
all right.
questions. So if you're saying like we build for high physical support or basic support or robust,
Yep.
and we are also talking about multiple bedrooms. So is it like a mix and match that we do, or is it like the whole house comes to a certain standard, like high or robust or basic?
Great question. That has very much been a bone of contention in the NDIS themselves. It's fair to say that the organization is learning itself as well. The short answer is we provide from a design aspect for the highest level, high physical support. We then step down and fit out to fully accessible, so that we can have 3 out of the 4 categories covered. but we only fit out to a certain standard, and then if we find out that we have more high physical support people, we can put the hoists in later on. But you want to ideally keep your options open. Here comes another $1,000 consultancy for free. When you do an SDA, register it in the design and in the as-built phase by your certifier for more than one category, which is exactly the question that you raised.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome. It's 5 to 8. I'm already in overtime. I'm happy to take more questions. Do we have any more? Okay. Shoot, Paul.
Yeah, hi. You may have said this earlier, and I'm sorry I came in a little bit late.
Sure.
The plans, I think you may have mentioned that the plans are your plans, is that right? They're registered plans?
Yes.
Yeah. And there's something you've developed over a number of years?
Yes. And I've been building houses, investment houses, for 20 years.
Mm.
My wife says in my next life I'll become an architect or designer, but that's a different story. I believe in, and this is where I've got my investor hat on. Every square meter costs money. So if it is not a clever design, if it is not usable space, why do it? Right? If you very, very carefully look at the design that I've shown you, and that will be in the presentation that you will get, there's a trick in there that saves us between 5 and 7 square meters. Now, I have said before that as a yardstick, rough, take it $2,000 a square meter. Well, if I've just saved, let's say 5 square meters, haven't I saved $10,000? That's the difference with the designs. And the other difference is, of course, make it usable. Don't just go and design to the absolute minimum that you can get away with. Make it usable. Because the moment somebody enters your dwelling, they will go, holy guacamole, this is different. I can actually live in here. I can park my second, my third wheelchair in the storeroom. I've got my own ensuite. There is a 3.5 by 6 meter patio in Townsville. That's what I want. I love fiddling with designs.
And you may have also said too, but the designs, are they registered like across Australia, or do they have to be registered in each state?
Every building needs to be certified by a registered NDIS certifier from the 1st of July of this year at 2 stages. One is at the design stage and one is at the as-built stage.
Right.
So every building needs to be certified. Which makes sense, because if you build for disabled people, you want to make sure that certain standards are met. Another, for instance, in theory, we can get away with 9 20mm doorways. All of our doorways are 10-20. So 10 centimeters wider. Right? You recognize those 10 centimeters when you're sitting in a wheelchair. I can guarantee it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did we start off that way? No. But we're learning. And that makes the difference. You provide for what your client wants. It's the same in your business, Paul. If we don't provide as business owners what our clients want, we're not longer in business. And this is where I see the win-win. There is enough money in the kitty to provide a great house in a great location to a great tenant. that will also be grateful for it. And the investor makes great money. Now, I just think that's great.
That's good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll take one more. That's it. Please book in if you are interested in talking. Just very quickly, I've been in business for 20 years. 76% of our business is returning clients. That's what I'm about. I'm into long-term relationships. Our 7-step success system provides accurate, unbiased investment guidance, training and opportunity, and we mitigate risk. That's what we're all about. Full disclosure, your money, it's open book. Not a single dollar goes aside, not a single dollar goes into a brown paper envelope. So my suggestion is book a strategy call and let's have a look at your personal circumstances. Let's see what we can do. All right. If you have further questions, by all means, send us an email, but even better, book in for a half-an-hour discussion. I hope that was worthwhile for you. I had fun. I hope you had fun too, and I hope you got some nuggets that you can take away. And